Welcome to Leading with Purpose, the podcast that's dedicated to helping you become the leader you aspire to be. Join us on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration as we explore the world of leadership and personal growth. In each episode, we will explore the art and science of effective leadership, bringing you insights, stories, and strategies from experts and thought leaders across various industries. And now your hosts, Dawn Marie Bornhammer, Maisha B. Hoy, Janelle E. Taylor, and Dr. Sharon H. Porter. Welcome to Leading with Purpose, the podcast that's dedicated to helping you become the leader you aspire to be as you lead, empower, inspire, and achieve. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, Editor-in-Chief of Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine.
I am Janelle E. Taylor, founder and CEO of the JTOA Corporation, where we optimize people, performance, and products.
Hi everyone, I'm Maisha B. Hoy. I'm the CEO of DSHG LLC, which manages customer first marketing, MaishaLemonadeStand.com, and Cuba.
And I'm Dawn Marie Bornhammer, the founder and Chief Impact Officer for Mission Inspired Consulting.
And we are elated to have our wonderful guest today. She is none other than Dr. Jen Mott, and she is a school administrator. And if that's not enough, she is also a wonderful professional circus entertainer as a balloon artist, a juggler, a stilt-walker, fire performer for the Cincinnati Circus Company. She's a keynote speaker as well as an author. Dr. Mott, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We are so excited to have you. And I think this is going to be like probably one of the absolute funnest interviews we've had.
I'm honored. I know you've had a lot of great guests, so I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And as an educator, you would think I'm going to go right for the education question. But listen, I've got to start with the circus performer. But honestly, I just really would like to know how you even began to know that you had, first of all, an interest in performing for the circus, and then the skills to do so.
Yeah, so it was quite the surprise, that's for sure. I never set out to be this big circus performer or anything like that. In junior high and high school, I learned how to juggle, but it was really through the realm of being a student athlete. So I just knew juggling helped with hand-eye coordination. I had some injuries where I couldn't run, so it was helpful to just sit on the sideline and have a different skill to play around with while my teammates were out on the field and take my mind off of the frustration. So I knew how to juggle, but very much like beginner, just I could do that. And I even juggled in a school presentation in high school just to be like whimsical and fun and do something different than the PowerPoint. And it's funny to look back on those moments of like, that was preparing me for something I couldn't have imagined, right? But I did all those things junior high and high school just for fun. And then my freshman year of college, I went to a four-year university out of high school, and I was looking for a college job, and it was September, and I was just getting started and ran into some stilt walkers at an event, at a local event. I was just there with friends, and we saw some people on stilts juggling, and we just went over to first start talking to them and just take a picture with them, like, oh, how cool, look at you. And we took a picture completely as spectators. And it's so fun because I actually have that picture. So it's one of those pictures that changed the trajectory of my life, but I would have never known in that moment. And I just started, I love people and I love meeting people and asking questions. So instead of just taking the picture and moving on, I just said, I can juggle and you get paid for this, but I wasn't asking for me. I was just learning about them. And I juggled right there in front of them. They handed me their things and we had fun and laughed. And really, they invited me in. And, like you said, school's a circus. There's so many metaphors to what happened, but it was an invitation where they invited me and they said, you can get paid for this too. And I thank my 18-year-old self for being naive enough to be like, yes, I can. I'm going to do this. And I just believed them. And thankfully I said yes. And thankfully I have very supportive parents who, of course, asked a few questions, but ultimately supported me. And it became a 4-year college job that paid for my college. And it just one of those things that like evolved over the years. And so it was 4-year college job turned into an infinite, forever long side hustle, just a really fun passion project that I happen to get paid for. So it's been amazing because I'm now at the threshold of I've been doing it longer than I haven't in my life. And so
Wow.
that is wild to me that I've been doing it for so long, but I love it. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities that it's brought me. And that's how I got started. That was the beginning.
I love that. And what an amazing outlet for you, you know? Like
It's
I don't
really,
like you can't do any better than that.
it's true because I had really great mentors who I was just prepared to quit when I got my real teaching job. And people were like, but does it bring you joy? Is it fun? Does it take away from your main work, from being a teacher? And all of those answers were like, yes, it brings me joy. And no, it doesn't take away from the work I want to do with my students and in the school. And it's exactly that because it's so different than what we do in school. It just is, there's a levity to it. It's fun. I get to see people at their best. I get to go to such cool events and meet people from all over. And it's absolutely a great outlet for
But,
sure.
but kudos to you. I love it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Dr. Jen, wow. So passion is there, and it is, I agree with Dr. Sharon that it's an amazing outlet. You have a dynamic, exciting background and multifaceted. So what I would love for you to do is help us dive into any lessons that you've learned from your experiences as a performer that can be applied to your effective leadership and communication as an educator.
So
Herein lies the
yes, yeah, absolutely. So what was neat for me was I really at first, it was my college job, and then I kind of kept doing it quietly while I started teaching. And I was really keeping them separate because I felt like I'm a teacher and then I'm a circus performer. And at school, the people that learned that I did circus couldn't believe it because that felt so different than what they saw me in at school, and then vice versa, right? The circus friends and people who met me in circus world. Oh, I don't know how hand effects, but the circus friends couldn't believe that I was a teacher. And to your point about like what really helps the performance, enhance the work that we do in education is the communication is key. Like I have learned how to communicate with all different types of people. I've been part of full scale large events of thousands of people and small family events of 20 people. And that is completely transferable in the classroom and in school leadership and in organizational leadership. As I've now gone in to speak to organizations, businesses, companies, I'm able to speak to people in all different worlds because I join their worlds in their celebrations and in their big corporate events, or of course in schools. And of course, when you're on stage, there's a level of stage presence that you have to have and the ability to be able to hold yourself and like ground yourself and be able to present yourself well. But then there's also just that fun and levity that you can bring to an environment that I think I've learned people really appreciate. Even if people have very serious jobs or what they do, they take seriously, which you can appreciate. There's also that little kid in all of us that wants to have a good time, wants to be reminded about what can bring them joy. And like we mentioned earlier, and I can flesh out later, but there's a lot of metaphors for the performance world and then the work we do, in our own corporate lives or school lives or whatever else we choose to do. So feeling comfortable in merging those two and in bringing those two together has also allowed me to have the confidence to bring that out in both realms.
You are a master integrator, Jen, and I actually feel, like it's almost therapy. You provide therapy in the boardrooms and through your performances. So yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Dr. Jen. I'm coming to call you Dr. Jen. I'm so excited. Like Dr. Sharon said, I was like, oh my God. When I read your bio, I think I read it twice. But I was like, is this to say she's a circus performer? But my question is really about, it's not really a question, it's observations, because I think you were in Paris at the Olympics.
I was, yes.
So I was thinking about I've been I've been deep diving on the Olympics all week, and these athletes, and they're performing at such a high level. And what you just said about being a performer and communication and getting prepared. So, give me some of your observations from just being at the Olympics and dealing with the athletes at that high level of where they are and trying to calm themselves and just perform.
Yeah. So I just got back 1 week ago today. I've been back for a whole 7 days, and it was an amazing experience. Very grateful to be able to go. We're still waiting on juggling to become an Olympic event, but we're not there yet. One of these days.
They'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. I believe in it. But for now, I just got to be a spectator and enjoy it. I would say I'll tell a quick connection to like me as a performer, and then like how this connects with the Olympics. In general, I'm presenting and performing, like the work I do is presenting and performing to non-jugglers. There are some jugglers who go to like juggling conventions and juggling festivals, and they're performing to jugglers, right? And so the audience is very different when you know the craft. And in general, I perform to organizations, companies, businesses, schools, students, staff, and 99% of the audience is non-jugglers, right? And so they see me on stage as, wow, how incredible. Look at all the things you can do. But I know jugglers, and I know a lot of professional jugglers because I'm in the field and I'm connected with a lot of jugglers from all over the world. And I follow them on social media, and I know that I am not the best juggler, right? Like I'm not like I know all of the things that I can't do. I'm aware of what I haven't achieved yet in the juggling world. And so to connect that to the Olympics, it's really interesting to have that knowledge and that feeling of we watch them and we're just like, whoa, look at how incredible they are. And I don't know if you've seen the things around the internet of like, we want an average person to just compete in the Olympics with these professional athletes just to give us like a baseline. And I just felt like that was very real of like these athletes are performing at their top level with the top competition from all over the world. And yet if they get fourth or fifth, they don't medal, right? Like there's that immediate competition of like, you made it, you had one in every 4-year chance and you didn't medal. But arguably we would watch that and be like, but you got fourth in the world. That's incredible. And so it's really that perspective that you have to hold for yourself of we just always hold ourselves to higher standards. Or when we're in the work, we then compare ourselves to others who are in the work or in the competition. And I think it's helpful to sometimes take a step back and be able to recognize like, look at what I am, look at what I can do. Look at how other people might see or view like my abilities or see that it's helpful, because it's really easy for us to downplay our talents or see that others are better, when really if you think about where we've come or how far we've come or what we are accomplishing, we can actually really appreciate it more. And I would argue serve others more in being able to recognize that.
That is an excellent message. I hope everyone that hears it writes it down, because we definitely compare ourselves. Even I think for a second I'm Simone Biles, and then I'm like, girl, get a grip. But we do have Snoop Doggy Dogg as our normal person.
That's right. That's right. He is representing very well. That is true. He
is representing very well.
Hey, Jen, I'm so grateful that you said yes to my random request because this is such a fun conversation. I want to talk a little bit an extension of your recent travel, but I understand that you actually just genuinely love travel. So beyond this particular excursion, my question is a little bit more broad in that in your travels, as you've been exposed to different cultures and communities and countries, what lessons have you learned that you've been able to kind of bring back to help support your own growth and the way in which you show up for yourselves, your students, and the people in your life? What have you kind of gathered from there that you've brought home that have perhaps made you a different or a better person?
The short answer would be that there is such joy in discomfort. There is such joy on the other side of discomfort and going outside your comfort zone. I am so grateful that my first experience abroad was in high school. So I didn't have a lot of like set grounded values as other people might if they don't travel until they're older, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I thankfully in high school, all 3 summers of high school between freshman, then sophomore, then junior year, I was able to go to other countries. And that just immediately gave me this opportunity to try new foods, meet different people, see different things. And it immediately opened up my worldview at a very impressionable age, right? So to be able to have those experiences 14 to 16 years old, it one gave me the opportunity to realize for me, I wanted to be a Spanish teacher because I realized that I loved the language of Spanish, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so to see that travel was a vehicle to use the language, I found that very powerful. And then beyond that, the discomfort piece of like, it's really easy to sit in your house and hear what's going on in the world and think it's not safe or I shouldn't try or the unknown. But when you go, like Paris, of course, there's the unknown of like the safety and there's a lot of people. But I went and now I can safely say I felt nothing but safe and supported. And the environment was just so happy and excited. And of course, people were there for their different countries, but it was all celebratory. It was all like, we're just in this for the sport, for the celebration, for the world coming together. And it's really beautiful to step into those. And you have the feelings, you have the butterflies, you have the unknowns, and you have the plans without, and you know something's not going to go according to plan. But it's in the moments of discomfort, it's in the funny stories where things don't go right. It's in all of those where you're able to just be like, I made it. And, you know, maybe that wasn't the most fun moment of the trip, but I did it, or I learned something about myself in that. And so when I bring those back home, I just hear people who say naturally, like, oh, I wish I could. And I'm like, but you can. Like, it's a choice of prioritizing money or time or all of those things. Those are choices we make, and the ability to also just think big and think, I believe that there is something for me here, and I'm just going to book the flight and show up, and the rest will get figured out. There's a lot of beauty in that.
You know, I think what I love most about what you just shared is the opportunity to mirror and model for others who may be more inclined to stay a little bit safer for fear of the unknown, but the unknown has so much possibility, and the opportunity to mirror that and lead by example and be able to share those stories and for your students, for your peers, for your family and friends to simply say, but why not? You know, you, or why not now, or whatever it is that gets them to just book that ticket or give themselves the permission to take on the experience. I was one of those people that traveled later in life. You know, I think my first overseas travel, I was 39. You know, and it was just so remarkable to me to be in a foreign land to myself. And it's so eye-opening to just recognize how people communicate, how people move through the world, and just the grace and honor of being in their community and learning from them was such a gift. So
I think that's incredible. And you sparked one more thing. Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
Because I work with students, and a lot of times, you know, if we get to talking or I have pictures in my office of my travels, you know, they ask about how many countries I've been to, and I just tell them it's however many countries same amount of countries as I am years old, and I let them decide what that number is. But a lot of times they'll say, oh, I wish I could, like, that sounds so fun, but my family doesn't. And what I love with working with students under 18 is I get to say, when you turn 18, it's this magic number where you get to decide, right? Like, there are so many things that are decided for you before you turn 18. And of course, we're all up against many different factors, even once we turn 18, but there's such freedom in being able to shape your perspective to say, if that is something you want to do, you put your time, talent, money towards that, and you can do it. And then I also especially tell the 12 and 13-year-old students, I hadn't traveled to any countries when I was your age, right? Like, that hadn't happened yet. I'm just now here this many years older, being able to say it is possible. And you're just offering them a different life perspective of thinking it actually can happen. It's just that power of yet, right? It just hasn't happened yet. And I love those conversations with them and planting that seed.
No, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Mott. Now I'm going for education. So, first of all, I applaud you for being a middle school principal. I did my tour duty in middle school. And I must say, I'm an elementary school principal now.
I love it.
But nevertheless, we know that our middle schools, and you're at one of the largest middle schools in Ohio. And so we know that positive and inclusive environments are so important, especially for our middle school learners. What types of things do you do as a middle school leader to help build those positive and inclusive environments?
So I'm really fortunate to not only be at such a large school district and large school, but we have over 70 languages spoken. And so we have truly families from all over the world. I just met a family from Morocco today who just moved here, and I got to show them pictures of Morocco on my wall in my office and immediately connect with them. So I think first is just like calling them by name, right? Like really learning their name. We as a district are pride ourselves. We have three big rocks, like big focus areas, and one of them is inclusive excellence. And they don't just say that. That is not a slogan on the wall, that is real. And so when we email families and email parents, we're always using their names. We're not just saying, excited to see your daughter. We're like, excited to see Sharon, right? Like we use names. And of course, some of them are hard to spell or hard to learn or hard to say, but we take the time to say, because especially at 12 and 13 with their discomfort and talking to anyone, peers or adults, they might say, oh, that's my name, that's fine, right? Like they kind of brush it off. And I say, no, I want to know your name. Make sure I'm saying it correctly, right? Because name is one of the most important words in the language for us, right? Like our own name. And then the second part is just obviously it's very hard as students are navigating who they are and figuring out who they are and their identity and like just who they want to be known as and all of that. Just really guiding them to accept one another and to be kind and to say, you know, this student didn't choose this. And so when we address things that do go wrong and do happen at a 7th and 8th grade building, because sadly, of course, students will say things, it's really calling that out and calling them in to a conversation and saying, we don't say this because, right? Like, here's the why. And I love our restorative discipline practices where we're not just giving a consequence. We have reflections. So like instead of detentions, we literally call them reflections. And it's not just sitting in a room, it's actually sitting in a room with an adult. And that adult is walking them through an exercise where they have to say, what did happen? What was your reaction? So we use the language, it's kind of common in schools, but not everyone. So it's called E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And so we talk to students about what was the event, what was your response? If you would respond differently now, what would you do? And what was the outcome? And that inclusion piece is huge when you have those conversations, because then they're able to realize the weight of their words or the weight of how they're treating one another, or they don't get to choose how they look or where they came from or what language they speak. Did you get to choose that? Right. And then we have those real conversations to hopefully affect change and continue working, knowing it's not necessarily a one-time thing at that age level.
So I love the inclusive excellence, and I will have to borrow that one. And I appreciate that because everything that you said is so important, especially the names, the spelling, and the pronunciation and the enunciation of those names. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dr. Jen, this entire conversation is invigorating, and I'm actually inspired because you already seem you're a driver of instinct. You have no absolute hesitation of jumping on a plane. You know your why, your purpose. I mean, this is the reason why we interview amazing people like yourself, because I want to know what's your inspiration of turning your dissertation, since we're talking about education, into a nonfiction book, Teach Virgins, and a picture book companion entitled Why Teaching. Please tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking, because that was a big part of my year this past year. So I did the dissertation 4 years ago in 2020, which was quite the year to research teacher perseverance and capture why teachers stay. I am the eternal optimist, and so the conversation in education was very much teacher burnout, teacher attrition, teachers are leaving. And I felt like my mom taught for 37 years, and every May as a new teacher, I'm celebrating teachers who are retiring after 30, 35, 40 years. It's like storied careers. And I wanted to give honor to them and say, why aren't we asking them why they're studying? Why are we just talking about why people are leaving? So I did the work. I got to interview 44 teachers from across the greater Cincinnati area, and they told me their stories. When I thanked them for their time, they thanked me because nobody had ever asked them those questions. And so it really felt like an honor to be able to like carry their stories into the dissertation. And then I wrapped it up. I celebrated with the 10 people I was allowed to invite to my party during 2020. And I moved on with my life. And I felt like post-COVID and post-2020, the conversation only got stronger. I felt like teachers were leaving even faster. I felt like education got even harder. Things that were kind of hard really were exacerbated by the pandemic and by just a lot of inequalities that were happening across the board. And I just was really sad to see the way things were happening. And I felt like I was sitting on this like dissertation that I had written and taken the time to do, but then it was just on an online database, right? And the only people who might read it one day are those who might want to research that topic. And so I started doing research on like, how would I make this more tangible, practical, palatable for people? And ultimately I landed on, I need to make it into a book. And so I literally took the Word document, I took the 130-page Word document, I rewrote it word for word, and I took out things like the charts and the graphs and the language of like research says, because I wanted it to be more real and more conversational, more narrative storytelling. And it turned into this. I have it right here. It's teacher perseverance. And I made up the term teacher. I put together the words teacher perseverance. I got it copyrighted just to have fun with it. And it was so fun to publish this in March, and it's their stories, and it was fun to reach out to them 3 years later. I even sent them a quick little survey of like, are you still teaching? Did you leave? Like I interviewed you 4 years ago. Like, what are you doing now? And that was really fun to be able to reconnect with them. Some of them came to the launch party, or I sent them the book. And being able to make their stories real. And then, of course, it leads to the opportunity to be with teachers and be in schools and inspire and motivate and speak positivity and optimism into the world that I felt like was talking about teachers are leaving. I just wanted to be able to talk about why teachers are staying. I can pause, or I can keep talking about why teaching and transition now. I get really excited. So
I am super excited, and I want one of those books signed. You took a message and you gave it a platform. You have given people voices, and you made a movement out of it. You know, I'm inspired, and this is a message that everyone in our audience should take down. There's a consistent message, guys. Write a book. You have a powerhouse here. So, I really do love how you entail those stories. But I'm looking forward to digging into Teach Parents.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, what was really fun out of it, the picture book that you asked about, was throughout the fall last year, because the goal was one school year. I do my life in school years, right? So I was like, I think I can do this in one school year. In the fall, I was talking to a friend, and she was asking about the book, and I'm kind of the person who holds my cards close, but I felt like the book, I needed to start saying it out loud and making it real, because it also would hold me accountable. And I was telling a friend about the book. She was saying like, gosh, I can't believe you're doing this. What's next? And I said, I think I do want to do a picture book companion, because here I am in a school, and it's real that students aren't even going into teaching anymore. And I work at Xavier as a professor, and our numbers are down, right? And so I thought, how do I inspire kids who might still want to be teachers? And my friend had an illustrator friend who's also a preschool teacher, and connected us. And it was like serendipitous. It needed to happen. And within 2 weeks of the launch of Teacher Verance, I was able to launch Why Teaching, which is a picture book companion. And what was
Beautiful.
so fun about this is it's the story of a kid who wants to be a teacher, but the adults in their life are telling them, don't do it, try this, try that. And the kid is insistent and says, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a teacher. So finally the adults ask, well, why teaching? And the kid goes into storytelling about the adults in their life and the stories the adults have shared about teachers who have changed their lives. So my mom always talks about her second grade teacher. My dad always talks about his third grade teacher. And so I just see that teachers have such a strong impact, and I want to have a similar impact. And mic drop, right? That's a mic drop moment. And then what was very special for me is that every single story told in the book gives credit to like actual teachers. Like the teachers are named, like my second grade teacher is, and they're all my own teachers and my own memories. They're just told through the lens of the kid. So it was so special last spring to be able to surprise. I got to reconnect with all my teachers, K-12, who were mentioned in the book. I got to have dinner with my kindergarten through fourth grade teachers that I hadn't seen in 30 years and surprise them with drawings of themselves that I'd pulled off of Facebook and sent them to my illustrator. And it was so special and really a fun full circle moment to be able to honor their work and hopefully inspire others to choose such an important profession.
What an honor, and it's quite impactful. I'm sure there was lots of tissues needed because I get emotional thinking about Mrs. Griffith, my first grade teacher. My mother had to pick me up from the principal's office after 2 weeks. I just didn't want to leave her. So
I love that.
kudos to educators. Wow, such an impactful story. I can't wait to get your books.
Thank you.
So Teacher Variance and Why Teaching. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Dr. Jen.
I can resonate so much with what you just shared. I love the story of the homage you paid to your own teachers. In one of the books that I published, I had included a story about my guidance counselor. And after it was published, I sent her a copy of the book, and she was just so moved by the impact that she had had on me that I remembered after all these years. And so I love the art of storytelling, but also the gift that these books have been to all who have had the opportunity to read them. Teacher Variance is interesting to me for a few reasons. I love the idea that you brought those stories to life, but I love the reframe that you offer everyone around, like, why are people staying? Like, what kept these individuals so deeply committed? And as someone, you said you're relentlessly positive, right? And so you think about that positivity framing. So what were some of the things in the world of their resilience and their perseverance? Were there any common threads that you saw? Anything in relation to that you could tie back for our audience to just learn about that, developing that within ourselves?
So I love that you did that with your guidance counselor. I think it's so meaningful for staff of any role to hear from people, no matter how long it's been. So thank you for taking the time to reach back out to them. And I love that both of you had connections with your teachers, Janelle and Dawn. So thank you for sharing that. There were 4 major themes that came out of the work. And so what's cool is that while I interviewed teachers in my space of education, so I called it Teacher Variance, they really have been found already to be very universal. So maybe perhaps you might be able to connect with at least one of them. And what I found is maybe people connect with one of them at different seasons in their life or in their careers, but they were higher calling, community, contextual joy, and the only option. So higher calling is the concept of this groundedness and purpose, and this is why I'm meant to do what I'm doing. And so I'm going to continue in it because this is the work I am here on this planet for. Community is all connected to either, for a school, connected to the community of the district you live in or the community you serve, or your kids go there, or maybe you went there, or even the community of your department or your hallway, right? Like your colleagues, that can be community. So even in the workspace, right? Whether you're virtual or in an office, just that feeling of communal like work that you're doing and there's purpose in the work that you're doing together. The third one is contextual joy. Contextual joy is trying to find and manage the correct context that brings you the most joy. Or many teachers do feel stuck once they hit a certain amount of years in the system. And so what I also talk about is that reality. And so being able to bring moments of joy and bring pockets of joy in your context. And so what can help kind of breathe life into the context that you're in. And so changing context might look like content area. It might look like school district. It might look like charter versus rural versus urban versus suburban, right? They're just different roles or different grade levels or content areas that fit different people. So it always is sad for me when new teachers of 2 or 3 years quit teaching, but they haven't put themselves in a different context. And I always say, don't give up on the profession. Try to find something that might work. Give it a true try. So that's an example. And then the last one is the only option. And the only option has a duality to it. And so the duality is the only option either in a desperate or pragmatic sense. And so I know that it's hardest because it's not the optimist in me, but I think it's important to call out the real, which is sometimes people are staying and teaching because it pays the bills and because they have a family that they need to support and because they don't have any other options. They just can't, they don't want to find the time to go back to school. They're too vested in the retirement and they see the light of like just getting the retirement. And part of me just feels like it's important to say that and just call it out. And if you're there, own it. And then I hope you are finding things in the evenings and on the weekends that are filling you, where you just know my work is doing a utility for me and for what I need. And so my happiness is in my evenings and my weekends through the community that I'm serving outside of school, through my friends, through my family. They're filling me so that I can show up Monday through Friday for my students. And I think calling that out is important. And then the last part is the other side of the only option, which is the hopeful. I'm always hopeful you have a few of these in your school, but man, they are the positive, the inspirational. This is my only option. What else would I be doing? I don't want to be anywhere but right here in this building, serving these students. And then with that one, there's a call back to higher calling, right? Because there's just this grounded purpose of what else would I be doing? I was meant to be a teacher. I was meant to be a school leader, whatever it is. So those were the 4 themes. And I've definitely found that they connect not only with staff in some way, but also with people in all different fields and industries.
No, they absolutely do. And I can see how they transfer to those other areas. In the work that I do today, I, do a lot of work with small businesses, but around educational type consulting work and really people that are this passionate. But I remember those teachers that I knew as a young person would never be anywhere else. I knew they wanted to be there with me. I believed that. And as a child, you feel seen by those individuals that really show up every day with all of that love and energy for the work that they're doing, but for the children that they're serving. And so I do pray and hope that everyone has those experiences so that they can point back to those memories and those impactful individuals in their life.
Yeah, that's great. It makes all the difference. It really does.
Well, Dr. Jen, it has been amazing. This has been just an unforgettable episode. And I think I have an activity for the first week back. The only option or the only option. I love that. I'm going to tell them if it's the second one, just ask yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, but I love that reflection piece. So thank you for that. Thank you for being our guest. And we do want to give you this space to share how individuals can connect with you. How can they purchase your book and just follow you and find out all the wonderful things that you're up to?
Well, I truly am so grateful. You all are incredible women. So to just be surrounded by you all for just a few minutes, I'm really super grateful and humbled. So thank you for the opportunity. If people want to reach out, I do have a website. It's just DR for doctor, just drjenmott.com, 1 N, 2 T's. But pretty easy to find if you search it. And then on Instagram and Facebook is where I'm most commonly active. I have a LinkedIn that I'm learning to use, but j.mott on Instagram. Facebook is just simply Jen Mott, or I have an author and speaker page, but have lots of content on both of those and on my website and ways to contact me through the website. The books are also on the website with links to there. And the biggest win has been connecting with schools, organizations, and stuff to be able to just send my book. So of course, all 4 of you will get signed copies, but I'd be happy to send out books to anyone interested. It's been really fun to become an author with a full-time job because while it's nice to sell books, of course, that's not the end goal. The end goal, because I have a full-time job, this is not my full-time income. And it's just been really fun to be like, I just want people to read it. I just want people to have it. I hope it inspires. And so if anyone reaches out, I'll send them a book. It's totally fine. I just like that people are reading them and feeling inspired by them. So happy to connect in any of those ways and very grateful for you all to give me that platform.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, we thank you as well. We want to thank you for joining us with Leading with Purpose podcast today. And again, I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter.
I'm Aisha Bihoy.
I'm Janelle A. Taylor.
And I'm Dawn Marie Bornheimer. As you navigate your leadership journey, remember, this is that leading with purpose is not just a philosophy, but a commitment to a positive impact.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your network. And don't forget to subscribe so that you will never miss an opportunity to explore the intersection of leadership and purpose.
Remember, continue to lead, empower, inspire, and achieve.
And until next time, lead with passion, lead with positive intention, and by all means, continue to lead with purpose. Thank you for joining the Leading with Purpose podcast. Please join us every Monday for a new episode.